Hi, my name is Lisa, and I'm with the American Museum of Western Art, the Anschutz Collection, here to talk about a painting by William Herbert Dunton. This is The Shower, painted circa 1914. It's an oil on canvas. William H. Dunton was born in Augusta, Maine, a lively publishing town in 1878, and was raised on his family's ancestral farms. He spent his youth with his younger brother and his grandfather hunting and fishing. Dunton started drawing when he was quite young. His mother claimed that he could use a paintbrush before he could hold a teaspoon. Undoubtedly influenced by the publishing trade in Augusta, he began writing and illustrating stories in his early 20s. Dunton, known later as Buck, was interested in the authentic West from an early age and left school at 16 in order to earn money to go out West. He left Augusta at age 18 in 1896 for Montana to work with an experienced grizzly bear hunter. After that first summer in Montana, Dunton would make a number of trips west during the warmer months between 1896 and 1911. It was about this time that open range grazing was giving way to barbed wire fences, and the West he was enchanted with was fading. Later in life, Dunton wrote, quote, "When I was a little boy and lived in Maine, I read everything about the West I could get my hands on, not dime novels, but everything authentic. I lived the life in prospect, then I lived it in actuality, living with the cowpunchers in Montana, Nebraska, Wyoming, New Mexico, Arizona, all along the cattle strip. Now that those days are gone, I live it in retrospect in my pictures," end quote. Dunton enrolled in classes at the Cowles Art School in Boston in 1897 and began his illustration career in earnest. He married Nellie Hartley in 1900 and moved to New York City in 1903, where he took classes at the Art Students League. After a few years of struggling, his illustration career took off and he became the leading illustrator of his day. At the height of his illustration career, Dunton was illustrating for some 20 magazines, including Harper's, Collier's, and Popular magazine. At one point, he was even asked to continue the illustrations for a serialized bibliography that Frederick Remington was illustrating before his untimely death. He began tiring of illustration when he met Ernest Blumenschein at the Salamagundi Club, a social club for the New York art community. Blumenschein urged him to quit illustration and, quote, "paint the West," unquote. A few days later, Dunton enrolled in Blumenschein's class at the Art Students League, where he studied until the end of the term and then went to Taos, New Mexico. When he arrived there in June 1912, he joined other artists that would soon become the Taos Society of Artists. About Taos, Dunton said in a 1913 interview, quote, "This is the ideal place for me because there are more varieties about Miss than I have found in any other place. There are several varieties of sage and cactus for backgrounds, according to the elevation that you choose," end quote. Towards the beginning of his career, much of Dunton's work focused on illustration, mostly of authentic Western figures. He was a collector of Western wear and weapons, some of which he used in his paintings. Dunton was often seen in town wearing Western clothes, as described by artist and writer Mary Carroll Nelson. Quote, "Dressed as a cowboy with his Stetson hat, the Stetson Company sent him a new one every year with his name gold stamped on the sweatband, a scarf tied around the neck, long narrow trousers, and boots," end quote. Eventually, he would shift from illustration to a painting style he perfected while in Taos. He painted The Shower circa 1914, a few years after arriving in Taos when his artistic style began to change. Unlike most other Taos Society members who focused mainly on the land and the indigenous people of Taos, Dunton also painted wildlife and cowboys. This often pigeonholed him as a cowboy painter. Similar, however, to many of his fellow Taos Society artists, he was captivated by the clear atmosphere and intense light of northern New Mexico. His color palette, seen here, of light blue, lavenders, brilliant golds, and greens, align him with some of his contemporaries in a style art historian William H. Gertz coined as the glare aesthetic. Plein air painting, painting outside, an interest in color theory and bright tonal light without loss of detail, a technique often seen in French Impressionist work. Multiple rainstorms can be seen simultaneously in the bright blue lavender sky in this vertically oriented piece. The painting explodes with movement, both from the huge active sky and from the riders retreating from the storm, lit up on their horses who kick up dust. Here, Dunton executes Gert's glare aesthetic of bright tonal light, and in the horses and riders, he focuses on form. If you cut off the bottom of the painting, the vivid planes of blue seem like abstract color field painting from decades later. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about an artist and artwork in the American Museum of Western Art.